Hey everyone, welcome back. Thanks for joining us. Today we've got a brand new story to share with you. So let's begin. Mike watched from his second-story bedroom window as his wife eagerly embraced Jake Williams, a man who claimed to be his best friend. This was their fifth date together, and as Mike watched and listened, he learned of their plan to further humiliate him. He told Christian in no uncertain terms he wanted to spend a whole week with her, but she put him off. Not a whole week, Jake, she said. Maybe a weekend, but only on one condition. What's that? He asked. You get Mike to pay for it, she said. He laughed. That's silly, he said. I'm a lot richer than he is. I'll pay for it. No, she said. You're forgetting the most important part of all this. And that is, he asked. Humiliating Mike, she said. Come on. Admit it. You get off on humiliating him, don't you? Pushing him around, making him feel like shit. Well, he started. He's my best friend, you know. Bullshit, she said. You love humiliating him almost as much as I do. Look, Christy, let's end this charade, he pleaded. Come with me and dump that loser. I want to marry you and spend the rest of my life with you. She laughed. Tell you what, stud, she said. Let me get him to foot the bill for a hot, dirty weekend, and we'll see, okay? Jake sighed, exasperated. Oh, it'll be dirty all right, he said, getting back in his car. I'll talk to you soon, but don't keep me waiting for too long. You're already giving me blue balls. She watched as he left, then turned to the house she shared with her husband, Mike. Walking in, she began undressing as she made her way up the stairs. She saw Mike in the bedroom when she walked in, dropping her dress on the floor. She was naked underneath. She made her way into the bathroom and inspected herself, leaving the door open. You probably heard what we were talking about, she said. I'm leaving you for Jake. We're going on a dirty weekend somewhere, and you're paying for it. Soon, I'll be leaving you to marry him. I've been paying ever since I married you 3 years ago, Mike said sadly. I thought we were good. I've done nothing but love you. Don't you love me? She snorted. How could I possibly stay in love with you? She asked sarcastically. You're nothing but a wimp who lets your best friend date your wife. She saw him sniffling on the bed. Oh, grow up, she said. Is that why you've been disrespecting me these last few months? He asked weakly. Why do you think? She asked. She saw him look at her with lust in his eyes. Snorting, she shook her head. Don't even think of it, wimp, she said. There's no way I'm letting you touch me with that pathetic little pee-pee of yours. I'm calling a real man to come over and fuck me good and proper. You can sit in the chair and watch if you want. Maybe take notes. Maybe I'll let you suck his come out of me if you promise to be good. Damn you, bitch, Mike said, getting off the bed. She watched as he went down the stairs. She followed him down and saw him reach for the door. Where are you going? Off to pout somewhere? Maybe cry on your mama's shoulder like a baby, she asked sarcastically. He looked at her with sadness in his eyes. He had taken all he could from her and swore he would take no more. Goodbye, Christy, he said, slamming the door. She heard his car door open, then slam shut. A few seconds later, she watched as he drove off. Where was he going, she wondered. She shrugged her shoulders. Fuck him, she thought. Good riddance to bad trash. She grabbed her phone and dialed a number. Hey, lover, she cooed. Wimpy is gone. So why don't you come over and fill me up? 3 days later, Michael pulled into the driveway. Opening the garage door from inside his car, he pulled in and closed the big door. He grabbed his briefcase and strode purposefully into the house. Christy was sitting at the kitchen table drinking a cup of coffee. He said nothing to her as he went into his home office. Curious, Christy went to his office door and tried to enter. The door was locked. Odd, she thought. He never locked this door. She knocked on the heavy wooden door and turned the knob when she heard the lock disengage. Opening the door, she saw him at his desk, looking at a map of something on his computer. She knew he was in the process of designing a housing tract along one of the area's many lakes and figured that's what he was looking at. What do you want? He asked curtly. For a moment, she was taken back. He had never been abrupt with her before. But then again, she realized she had been rather disrespectful of him recently. I was concerned, she said. You left 3 days ago, and I never heard from you. I tried calling your cell, but you never answered. I'm sure you were, he said sarcastically. Christy stopped for a moment. Was this really her Mike? He looked like Mike, sounded like Mike, but there was something slightly different about him. Maybe she had pushed him too far. She tried reaching out to him, but he managed to avoid her advance. Don't you want to give your wife a kiss? She asked. It's been 3 days since I last saw you. He looked at her for a moment, as though she was an insect being examined under a microscope. He shook his head. No, he said, turning back to his computer. Please close the door on your way out. Christy was really confused by now. Her husband never refused her advances and always kissed her whenever he could. This man was cold. She closed the door to his office and went to the master bedroom to grab her phone. She dialed a number, and a man answered on the first ring. Jake, he's back, Christy said, but something's wrong. It's like he's a different person. He wouldn't even kiss me when he came in the house. Don't worry about it, sweetie, Jake said. He's probably just realized that you're leaving him, and there's nothing he can do to stop it. I'll be over tonight, and we'll get it all taken care of. Just let me talk to him for a few minutes. Okay, Christy said. You'd better be right. Michael heard her half of the conversation and smiled, turning back to his computer. That night, Jake pulled into the driveway. Christy opened the door and let him in, giving him a sloppy kiss as he entered. Where is he? Jake asked. She pointed to the office door. He's been in there all day, she said. Let me have a few words with him alone, Jake said as he walked to the office door. He knocked on the door after finding it locked. Mike, it's me, Jake, your friend. Can we talk for a few minutes? The door locked, disengaged, and Jake entered. Close the door behind you, Michael said as Jake entered. Sit, he commanded, pointing to an empty chair. Jake sat down as Michael poured himself a drink. Aren't you going to offer your friend a drink? Jake asked. Michael looked at him for a moment. Friend? Are you really my friend? Michael asked. Jake looked confused. Christy was right. This was not the weak, beta male he was used to dealing with. Of course, Jake said. I'm your best friend, remember? Michael chuckled. Best friend, he said. Tell me, what kind of a friend steals his friend's wife? Mike, I'm sorry, Jake began before Michael cut him off. You want Christy, right? Michael asked. Jake nodded his head. How much is she worth to you? I don't know what you mean, Mike, Jake said. Don't play dumb with me, Jake, Michael said. You're a savvy businessman. You know there's always a price to be paid in any negotiation. How much? I don't know, Jake said. What do you have in mind? I really like that new Bentley of yours, Michael said. How much did you pay for that thing? I paid over $500,000 for it, Jake said. I take it that it's paid for, right? Michael asked. Of course, Jake said. That would be a good start, Michael said. What? Jake asked. You want me to hand over my Bentley in exchange for Christy? Michael smiled. Along with 25% of your net worth, Michael said. Jake's eyes widened. That's over $50 million, Jake said. You can't be serious. It's exactly $52,450,389.25, according to my research, Michael said. And I am serious. Very serious. You want my car and 25% of my net worth in exchange for Christy? Jake asked. Christy was right. This wasn't the man he was used to pushing around. That offer is good until noon tomorrow, Michael said. After 12 o'clock, it goes up to 50% plus controlling shares of your company. You want Christy? That's my price. That's highway robbery, Jake said. You'll never get away with it. Maybe. Maybe not, Michael said, sipping his drink. You want her, although God only knows why. And that's my price. I tell you what, you agree to my offer, without condition, and I'll make sure the two of you spend the rest of your lives together. Isn't that what you want? Well, yeah, I would love to spend the rest of my life with Christy, Jake said. Michael smiled. Agree to this. And I'll even make the two of you a celebratory dinner, Michael said. What do you say? I'll need some time to think it over, Jake said. Michael nodded his head. I'll give you until noon tomorrow, he said. Now please, close the door on your way out, he added, indicating the meeting was over. Jake got up, confused, and left the office. He watched through the curtains as Jake and Christy left. He smiled and made a few calls. Christy didn't get home until early in the morning. He could hear the two of them talking in the driveway. Just think, Jake said. In a couple days, we'll be able to start our new lives, free of Mike. Come on, let me come inside and get a taste of this, he added, grabbing Christy's back. She smiled and pulled his hand away. Soon enough, she said. I can't wait to have Mike service like a waiter. She kissed him and watched as he drove off. She entered the house and saw a light in her husband's office. Was he in there all this time? She wondered. She tried the door, but it was locked. Mike? She asked. Go away, Michael said. Christy decided not to push him any further. She was more than concerned about her husband's strange behavior and went on up to the master bedroom. The next day, Michael received a text from Jake. Deal. He replied with an offshore account number and instructions that he would be monitoring it to ensure the transaction was complete. Within a couple hours, he verified the full amount had been transferred and instantly moved it out, splitting it up between several other accounts that only he had access to. He sent a text to Jake and Christy. Dinner tonight? On me. Be here 7 p.m. sharp. He headed out to get what he needed for the night's meal and was back in an hour, working in the kitchen. He loved to cook, and there was something bittersweet about tonight's meal. Christy got home about 6 o'clock that evening and went into the kitchen. She had never known her husband to cook, but he seemed to know his way around the kitchen. Whatever he was making, it smelled delicious. I didn't know you cooked, she said. He looked at her before replying. There's a lot about me you don't know, he said. Maybe if you'd stayed home now, and then you would have learned something. I did learn to fend for myself, though. Now go get ready. Your date will be here soon. She tried to kiss him on the cheek, but he moved his head to avoid her. She backed off and ran upstairs, a tear running down her face. What have I done? She asked herself. A few minutes before 7 o'clock, Jake showed up and rang the doorbell. Michael answered the door and let him in. Jake handed him a set of keys to the Bentley and the signed paperwork. As promised, he said, I'm parched. Can I have something to drink? Thank you for living up to your promise. I'll be giving you and Christy something to drink soon, Michael said, pocketing the keys. He was looking forward to driving the new Bentley. Soon, Christy came back downstairs, stunning in a short, backless dress that left nothing to the imagination. Michael noticed that she had taken off her rings. She walked to the dining room table as Michael pulled out a chair for her. She smiled at him as she sat down, but he didn't return the smile. Jake sat down as well, smiling like a Cheshire cat. You look lovely, my dear, he told her, kissing her hand. And I see you've taken off your rings. Good. She smiled as Michael brought 2 flutes of champagne and set them down. He went back to the kitchen and returned with a large dish. He removed the cover, and they all took in the aroma of Michael's lasagna. That smells divine, Jake said. Perhaps you missed your true calling. Michael said nothing as he served 2 helpings, one on each plate. Christy looked at him. Aren't you going to join us? She asked. Michael shook his head. No, he said. This is your dinner. Enjoy. He stood back and watched as the lovers toasted each other and sipped their champagne. He retreated to his office with a wry smile on his face. He glanced at his watch. Any time now, he thought. Sure enough, he heard 2 thumps. Looking into the dining room, he saw Christy and Jake slumped over. Good, he thought. They would be out for at least 6 hours. He changed clothes and got busy, stripping them both naked and tying their arms and legs around each other. Grabbing a wheeled cart from the garage, he took the 2 out, wrapping their unconscious bodies with heavy chains that had weights attached to them. He placed ball gags in their mouths in case they woke up before he reached his destination. It wasn't easy, but he managed to put both of them inside a large canvas bag he purchased just for this occasion. Using the cart and a portable engine lift, he placed them inside the Bentley's trunk, then closed and locked the lid. He got in the car and headed out. After reaching his destination a few hours later, he noticed movement from inside the bag and opened the top. 2 confused heads popped out of the bag and looked around at the darkness, scared. Michael approached them, taking a small taser with him. If you promise to remain quiet, I'll take the gags out and answer any questions you might have, he said. But if you scream, I promise you won't like the results, he added, holding up the taser. They nodded their heads, so Michael pulled the gags out of their mouths. Where are we? Christy asked, terrified. Who are you? What's going on? Yeah, Jake said. What the fuck is going on? According to my GPS, this is the exact location where your husband killed himself, Michael said. Killed himself? Christy asked. What are you talking about? Yes, he told me all about the way you had been treating him the last couple years, cutting him off from sex, cuckolding him, humiliating him, Michael said. Oh, I'm sorry. I forgot my manners. You probably think I'm Mike. Actually, I'm his twin brother, Michael. We not only share DNA, but we happen to have the same first name and the same middle initial. I warned him about you, Christy, but he wouldn't listen. You know, I came this close to saying something when the preacher said, if anyone has reason why these 2 should not wed. But I didn't, he added, holding up 2 fingers very close to each other. You see, Christy, while Mike and I have a lot in common, we're actually quite different. He was an easygoing man who got along with everyone. Unlike me, confrontation just didn't suit him. He loved you with all of his heart and was willing to put up with practically anything to make you happy. On the other hand, I saw right through you from the beginning. I knew you were a conniving bitch who would cheat on him the first chance you got. I hoped I was wrong for his sake, but unfortunately I was right, he said. Mike never said anything about having a brother. Christy said. No, that wasn't my insistence, Michael said. You see, officially, I don't exist. I'd tell you why, but then I'd have to kill you. He laughed. Oh, wait. I know it's dark, so you probably don't recognize your surroundings, Michael added after he finished laughing at his own joke. We're in the deepest part of Bottomless Lake, the same place where Mike ended it all just a few days ago. You see, he couldn't take what you had done to him anymore, and he took the easy way out. I tried to stop him, but he was inconsolable. Tears were running down Christy's face. He killed himself, she asked. I never wanted him dead. Michael snorted. Bullshit, bitch, he said. You yourself said you didn't love him. You may as well have put a gun to his head and pulled the trigger. Michael looked at Jake. And you, asshole. You pretended to be his best friend. You never answered my question. What kind of a friend steals his friend's wife? He asked. The truth is you never were his friend. You used him to get what you wanted. You enjoyed pushing him around, cuckolding him, humiliating him at every chance. But you promised me we'd spend the rest of our lives together, Jake said. You lied to me. You cheated me. Michael laughed. I told you the two of you would spend the rest of your lives together, Michael said. I just never told you that your lives would be cut drastically short. So yes, you will spend the rest of your lives together. You'll even die together. Rather fitting since the two of you conspired against my brother. Please don't do this, Christy begged. Michael looked at her. Mike told me he said those same words to you before you humiliated and cuckolded him, Michael said. But you just laughed in his face and told him to suck it up. Well, bitch, suck it up? You're crazy, she said. You'll never get away with this. Michael shrugged his shoulders. Maybe, maybe not, he said. But once your suicide letter is found on your computer, it won't matter. I have to admit, though, it is a touching letter. Changing the subject, you do know that no one has ever found the bottom of this lake, right? And there's enough weight on that chain around you to make sure your descent is rapid. I estimate you two might last 60 seconds at most before you become unconscious. You might even live a few minutes afterward. At any rate, enjoy. Michael opened the bag fully and tipped it over until the two occupants went into the water, struggling. On voyage, he said, watching the bubbles come to the surface. Soon, the bubbles stopped. Michael started the boat's motor and headed back to the dock, using the marina's lights as a guide. He parked the boat, turned it off, and jumped inside the Bentley. He made a mental note to incinerate the bag so as to eliminate any evidence of its previous contents. He pulled out his phone and sent a text message. Done. A reply came back almost instantly. Thanks, bro. Enjoy the ride. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more stories like this. See you next time.